Hi everyone, I'm Joy Wen from George Brown College Library. Today I'll share how we created a custom Indigenous collection facet in Primo to improve the visibility of Indigenous authors and materials in our discovery layer. This project was launched in the summer of 2024. Prior to the project, we added over 1,000 Indigenous print titles to support our college's Indigenization strategy. But students and faculty found it difficult to search for Indigenous authors. We also wanted more exposure to our Indigenous collection, even when users weren't specifically looking for them. As you can see from the screenshots, whether you're using a basic or advanced search, it can be difficult to find resources by Indigenous authors in Primo. Also, many users don't actively search for Indigenous materials. We wanted to create a system where Indigenous resources naturally surface when they're relevant to the search topic. This helps to increase their visibility and impact. Our solution was to create a custom Primo facet that allows users to easily discover materials either by Indigenous authors or as part of the Indigenous collection. We started by identifying relevant print books in Alma. Here's some background information regarding our Indigenous print collection. They're not shelved in one unified location. Books with general Indigenous content are housed in designated Indigenous locations, but program-specific titles are interfiled with subject collections. This makes it difficult to identify them through their shelf location. So we used a combination of sets to identify them. Then we created a normalization rule that populates a local mark 995 field with either Indigenous collection or Indigenous author, based on values found in certain mark fields. I won't go into the technical details here, but you'll find them summarized on the slide. Here's a screenshot showing the normalization rule we used. Once the rule was ready, we created a process and scheduled a job in Norma to apply it to the identified records. After that, we configured the 995 field at the custom facet in Primo and added it to the discovery display, making it available for users during their search. Some quick tips and lessons we learned. If you're not sure which local mark field to use, or which records may already contain that field, you might want to create an indication rule to identify affected records in advance and clean up if necessary. It's also essential to mark the 995 field as a local field. If you don't, any edits you made may be overwritten when the record is resynced with the network zone. And finally, always test on a small sample first. This helped catch issues early and fine-tune the normalization rule. Here's a screenshot of the custom facet. The facet appears when there are Indigenous materials relevant to the user's search, even if they weren't specifically looking for them. This helps increase exposure and access to Indigenous content. On the cataloging side, staff can now apply the normalization rule directly during the cataloging process. This streamlines the workflow and helps reduce manual entry errors and inconsistencies. Limitations. The facet currently only applies to print materials, since those are the records we have direct control over. This leads to our next step. We started with print materials last summer, since these records are in the institutional zone. But the vast majority of our resources are e-resources managed by the network zone. I ran a small sample test, and I'm very optimistic that extending the facet to ebooks is feasible. However, we'll need specific permissions from the network zone to access some features in the institutional zone. We'll reach out to OCLS to explore this further. The Facet could also be adapted for other special collections, such as video games or indigenous artwork, to highlight unique materials without cluttering Primo's location filters. Thanks for listening. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need more information.